Alright, I fixed it, I'm showing you. I think I've done
I know.
Okay, just a comment about the homework I returned. It would also have bearing on the homework that you have due for me today. And that is, how do you draw the pivot symbol? Yeah, I think I have some, I don't know, there's some people that are somehow drawing it sideways. I'm not sure exactly how they're doing it. Maybe I have to have someone come up and do it. But the pivot symbol actually looks like this. It's a vertical symbol. So that you have one chord on the top, whatever it is in the old key, and then you have the chord in the new key analyzed directly underneath it. It's not a side-by-side type of symbol. It's a vertical symbol. Two chords, one on top of the other directly. So, for the half-sheet homework that you have for me today, could you also make sure that wherever you analyze your pivot chords, could you make sure that you've got a chord up here in the old key? You've got the key listed somewhere, the new key listed right here, and then you've got the way the chord is analyzed in the new key. That's the correct format, I should say, for a pivot chord.
I did shave yesterday.
I mean, like,
First name, is that last year? Christmas break.
cause I like,
Who was in my grade?
it was like, I had my alarm set at 8:30, I'm like,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
it's
I can hit the snooze, and I woke up to the snooze at 8:50, and I'm like, like, in that 20 minutes.
All right, so here's a good example. You don't want your pivot symbol looking like this. Okay? You see the difference between that one's, you'll just have to, it's kind of like the inverse or the mirror image of this. So I would just start it coming down and then to the left and then down. That's how I would write that. Okay. And then that way, see how the two chords of the pivot, they're not vertically aligned. You can't really, one's way over on the left and one's way over on the right. But if you do it this way, then you can have them vertically aligned. You see that? And then you can show the new key, whatever it may be, either inside the bracket if you've left room, or just right outside the bracket, that's fine. But the main goal is to try to get the pivot chord lined up vertically. Analyzed in the old key, and then the way the chord is analyzed in the new key, and then you can continue your analysis from this point on. So, let's, since we're dealing with that, we're addressing that, let's see if does anyone have any questions, or other questions, I should say, about the part writing that I gave you for today? Do you all know what the figure-based symbols mean? What does a slash through a number mean? Yeah, it means to raise that note a half step higher than the key signature would normally call for. And the numbers refer strictly to intervals above the bass. They don't refer to chord members. They refer just to distances above the bass. So you can identify what pitch you need, and then you put the pitch you need wherever it is most appropriate part writing-wise in the chord. Sarah, did you have a question?
Yeah, can I ask?
Sure.
The sixth one?
Is that the one with the figured base underneath it?
Yeah, the 5 and the sharp.
Okay, yeah. And down up here quickly. And we have a 5 and a sharp. That's the second quarter of a minute. All right, so at this point, I'm already in the new key. In fact, this should be the first chord that you analyze completely in the new key. Okay? So and what it's going to be is it's going to be a 5 in the new key. It's going to be a 5, root position. Now, again, depending on where your soprano voice is at the moment, I actually have an A sharp in the soprano. And I need to physically write a sharp on that A because the figured bass tells me to place a sharp. This means to place it on the note that's a third above the bass. It's understood to be a third. Is not a third above an F. So I put a sharp, physically write a sharp on there because that's what the figured bass is telling me to. Then the 5/ means that I need a C somewhere in the chord because a C is a fifth above the F sharp. But what does the slash tell me to do with the C? Does it tell me to take it out and go party with it? No, the slash tells me I need to raise it a half step. So it's not C natural from the key signature, but I need to raise it a half step so it becomes C sharp. And so I needed to physically put a sharp on that note as well. So do you. And then my tenor was in the chord prior, was pretty low here, so I just kind of shared the two. And that's how I part wrote this chord here. But you would need to make sure you have two accidentals in that chord. A sharp on the A and a sharp on the C. Wherever your A and C are. Okay. Other things. Did you note that the second to last chord, I guess I was nice, it is not a 5/7, it's just a 5 triad. So in this case, you don't have to worry about taking the 7th down by step at the cadence. I hope you took care of the tendency tones that would appear in the second chord or the first chord you had to part right. There's also, I have a tendency tone in this chord too. Does anyone know what the tendency tone is in this one chord? Or in this 5 chord? The A sharp. Because I'm in B minor at the time. And so that's T of the key and it's in an outer voice. So if you have an A sharp in the soprano like me, where does it have to go next? Yeah. It has to go here. Okay. Those are some of the main tendency tones. Yeah, and wherever you see a slash through a number, you're going to need to add a sharp physically in that chord somewhere. Yep. All right, any other questions before I collect this? All right, then let me do so. So we can go on to other things. It looks like a lot of you are staring at it like you're like just trying to let it sink in. Like you did it at one point, but now you just have to remember, what did I do? Okay, thanks. Oh,
That's my only question.
Yes, okay.
What's the difference between the odd and second?
Well, they sound the same, they're enharmonic. It's just that the minor third is much easier to visually see and process in your mind than an augmented second. So for instance, like C sharp to E is a minor third, but C sharp to D double sharp is a augmented second. And that's a lot more, to me, that's a lot more complicated to sing when you just look at it. Oh, Lane, your name looks so nice up there.
Yeah, I know. I wonder who wrote it.
Sticks out in bold.
What?
All right. So today, I'm going to finish up our discussion of common chord or pivot chord modulation. If you are paying attention to your assignment sheet, you know that on Monday we have a test review. And that means we have our first test on Wednesday next week. And of course that test will cover secondary dominants, how to spell and analyze them, secondary leading tone chords, how to spell and analyze them, and then also modulation, how to write a pivot chord chart. You remember how to do that? Right? How to find the 5 closely related keys to a starting key. Those kinds of things will be on the test. Yes?
Do you know if Micah's still having that theory review session that he had last year, or is he not doing it?
You know, I'm not sure. I talked to Micah this afternoon, like around 2-ish. I'll find out. Since your test is on Wednesday, he does have hours, I think, Tuesday afternoon. So he tends to do test review sessions, especially for the freshman theory students. But I think if enough people wanted, if enough people here wanted him to, he would find a way to do a test review for this class too. You just have to kind of like, hey, Mike, buddy, old pal, that kind of thing. So I'll find out and see if I can let you know for sure on Monday. But some of you may see him more often than I will this weekend or even before. So if you want to ask him, you can see what he's willing enough to do. All right. So what we need to talk about today is, we've been talking about in pivot chord modulation how to spot a signal to indicate that you're not in the old key anymore, but you've modulated and you've shifted to a new key. Okay? But I don't think we ever spent the time to go through all the details and figure out specifically, how do I know specifically what signal I should be looking for when there's a modulation? And number 2, are there more than one possible signals I should be keeping an eye out for? And if there are more than one possible signals available, how do I know how many there are? Wouldn't it be nice to know all the information about what you need to be looking for? So let's spend a little bit of time talking about that today. Really finding the signal pitches that tip you off to where a modulation occurs is really not that difficult. It's just you have to know what to think about and what to compare in order to get the signal pitches that are available to you. So what I have on the board here is I have a list of 3 items. And I will tell you that there are always going to be between 1 and 3 signal pitches in a modulation between 2 closely related keys. There's always going to be a minimum of 1, but a maximum maybe of 3 signal pitches that you can keep an eye out for. So 1, 2, or 3, those are the only possibilities. The way to find all of the possible signal pitches between 2 keys is, number 1 I have up here, think about or list the notes that are different between the 2 keys' key signatures. That means we're thinking about the notes that we would encounter in the new key, but not the old key. Let me take, let's see, where are the keys that I wanted to use as a... I think I just wanted to use the same keys that we had on the homework. Yeah. Let's take the keys of E minor and B minor, for example. The homework started in the key of E minor and it ended in the key of B minor. Now, I'm not going to write a pivot chord chart or anything right here, but I'm going to go through these steps and I'm going to list what notes or signal pitches would appear in B minor that would not appear in E minor. Because if I can identify all the notes that would appear in the new key and not the old key, then I'm golden, right? Then I'm looking for exactly what I need to find out where the modulation is at. All right, so are E minor and B minor closely related keys? Yes, they are. This has one sharp in its key signature. This has two sharps in its key signature. And one of the things I told you to think about is what is the difference between the key signatures? Well, we just said E minor has one sharp, B minor has two sharps. So what is the note that B minor has in its key signature that E minor does not have? C sharp, right? So that's going to be one possible signal for you to look for, keep an eye out for, when you're trying to locate the place where the key changes in the music. That's definitely one signal. Okay? Now, the second thing says that if the first key or the old key is a minor key, then what I want you to do is I want you to list Te, the lowered seventh scale degree. List Te of this key in the new key. Okay? And again, that goes back to, because for instance in E minor, if I have lots of D sharps, that's keeping me and maintaining me in E minor, because I've got T, that's T of that key. But once I lose D sharp, and the D's start to become D natural or Te in the old key, then I'm not going to be defining E minor very well at all. In fact, does not D natural occur more closely in this key than it does in this key? Does that make sense? Okay. So, number two, the absence or the lowering of the leading tone in the old key. When I start to lose T here, D sharp, and it becomes lowered, it ceases to be raised, it becomes D natural. And that is another signal pitch that I want to keep an eye out for when I'm modulating between these two keys. All right, and then finally, if the new key or the second key is minor, just like we have here, then the last thing I want you to list as a signal pitch is the leading tone of the new key. Because the leading tone of the new key is only going to appear in the new key, it's not going to appear in the old key. And once you start seeing the leading tone of the new key appear, that's a big hint or signal saying, hey, we're not in the old key anymore. The composer's trying to get us to understand and hear that we moved to a new key, because we've got its leading tone now. So, what is the leading tone of the new key of B minor? A sharp. So I guess what I'm telling you is that when you modulate from E minor to B minor, these are the three signal pitches, and these are the only three signal pitches that you need to be looking for, watching out for, to find where the signal chord is, and then back up one chord from there to locate where this pivot chord is. The pivot chord that smooths it out. These three things we have to think about. So it looks like between modulating from E minor to B minor, there are a total of 3 signal pitches. There will never be more than 3 signal pitches to watch out for. There could be as little as 1, sometimes 2 signal pitches, but never more than 3. Never more than 3. Does anyone have any questions about that yet? I'm going to go through another example, of course. Okay, let's scrap this and let's try 2 other chords that are in key. Let's pretend that we were modulating or writing a piece of music and we wanted to modulate between the keys of F major and A minor. Are those 2 keys closely related? Yeah, they are, right? Their key signatures differ by no more than 1 accidental. This has no flats, no sharps. This has 1 flat, right? find what possible signal pitches we would look for in the new key of A minor that would not be normally occurring in F major. What's number one? What is the difference between the key signatures? Yes, okay, B flat, B natural. F major has B flat, A minor does not. So what pitch am I going to be looking for? B, which one? B natural, yeah. Because B natural would tip me off that, hey, I'm not in F major anymore. I could be in the new key because B natural belongs in A minor, but it doesn't belong in F major. So that's step one, finding the difference between the key signatures. Now, number 2 and 3 only have to be gone through. They only have to be thought about if, this is only if the first key is minor. And number 3 is, you only have to go through that if the new key is minor, or the second key is minor. So, look at number 2. Is my old key, is my first key minor? No, it's F major. So I can skip step 2 completely. Don't have to worry about it. Is my new key a minor key? Yes, it is. It's A minor. So I do have to do this, step 3. What is the leading tone of the new key of A minor? G sharp. So these are going to be the only 2 possible signal pitches to alert me that the music has gone from F major to A minor. And there are no more. See how in this case there's only 2 signal pitches possible? But these are really good ones, aren't they? Your ear will tell. If you start hearing G sharps and B naturals and not B flats, your ear's going to know, hey, we're not in F major anymore. And the composer has to use one or both, doesn't have to use all of them, but the composer can use one or both of those signals to bring about or effect the modulation, to signal to the listener and to the analyst that, hey, we've gone into another key, so here's the signal chord that contains the signal, one of these or both of these signal pitches. And the chord that contains the signal pitch or pitches is called the signal chord. And where do you find the pivot chord? In relation, once you find the chord with the signal and with one or both of these accidentals, where do you look for the pivot chord? You go back one chord, right? That's always where the pivot chord is. The pivot chord smooths out the transition between the 2 keys. The signal chord, the chord in the music with either or both of these pitches in it, is the first chord entirely in the new key. That's typically the way this works. Okay, I think I have one more pair of keys. Let's try. When you're modulating between 2 keys that are major keys, it's really simple, pretty easy. If both of the keys you're modulating between are major, you're only going to get one signal pitch. You're only going to get one signal pitch. For instance, let's try B flat major going to F major. Are those 2 keys closely related? Yes. Because both of the keys are major, we don't have to go through steps 2 and 3. All we have to do is step 1. What is the difference between these 2 keys, key signature? What does F major lack, or have, however you want to think about it, that B flat doesn't? B natural. And the only way you can tell that is because you know their key signatures, right? My freshmen next week are having a test, and it's going to contain a lot of scales and key signatures. You guys took that a long time ago. Remember? Those are good times. So this is the only accidental that will signal a shift from B flat major to F major. Because neither of these 2 keys is minor, I don't have to think about numbers 2 and 3 over there. So you see how there's always going to be 1 signal pitch, 2 signal pitches, or 3 signal pitches, but no more than that, and no fewer than that, to alert you that a modulation is happening. So, I don't know, maybe I should Can I give you two keys that maybe just you in your notebook or on scrap paper, you can figure out what the signal pitches would be? Okay, let's try that. Let's go from G minor, start in G minor and go to D minor. Those are the two closely related keys I want to modulate between. Go through these steps and start listing the pitches that would appear now in D minor but not G minor. Take a few minutes to do that. For some of you, I'm sure you can do this in less than a minute. For some of you, it might take a few minutes. That's okay. Before I go through all the signal pitches possible, somebody you want to volunteer, let me know, how many signal pitches did you find? 1, 2, or 3? What did you get? 3. 3, good. There are 3 possible signal pitches to go from G minor and get to D minor. So, let's go through the steps now. The difference between the key signatures means that I'm going to stop seeing E flat, and I'm going to start seeing what kind of E? E natural. That's the difference between the key signatures. D minor does not have an E flat, so one of the signals would be an E natural. Now, the old key, the first key is minor, so we have to go through this step here. What is the absence or the lowering of G minor's leading tone? F natural, that's right. G minor's leading tone is F sharp. When we cease seeing F sharps and start seeing F naturals, that's another big indicator saying that, hey, we're probably not in G minor anymore. Right? Because G minor's leading tone is F sharp. So if you lower it, if it's not consistently raised to F sharp anymore, it's going to revert to F natural. And finally, the new key is minor. What is the leading tone of the new key, D minor?
C sharp.
C sharp. Any of those pitches should help signal a modulation. I bet you though what the composer would do, the composer might use a combination of some of these in the same chord, and it would be pretty obvious. Like for instance, I can imagine a composer using an A major chord, which is 5 in the new key. And an A major chord is going to have not only a C sharp, but also an E natural. And it's going to tell us we're not in G minor anymore. Any questions about that? I'll probably give you one short problem on the test coming up next week to tell me what all the possible signal pitches are between these such and such closely related keys. And as long as you know how to think about it and how to do it, that makes analysis of modulation so much easier because you know what you're looking for. You know what you need to be looking for. Okay, how many of you have your workbook today? If you open it up to page 170, please. kind of exercise is pretty straightforward. It takes a little bit of thought, but that's about it. What do the directions tell you to do here? It says fill in the name of the new key on the second line of each exercise. Now, what's going to help us, what's going to tell us what the new key that we're modulating to in these progressions, what it is? Where would you look mostly?
Pivot chord?
Yeah, look at the pivot chord. That's right. So for instance, the first one says we're starting in E minor, and the pivot chord is a minor 4/6 in E, but that's also a 1/6 in the new key. What is the root of a fourth chord in E? A. So that means that's the root of the one chord in the new key, which means we've gone to what key? A minor, right? How do I know it's A minor and not A major?
Because the one is.
Yeah, because if you look at the very end, don't you notice that the one is lowercase, so it's got to be A minor? Yeah. So I would write that right in there. Number 2. Let's see, a 7/6 in D major. Think of the root of that chord. And then think of that chord as a 2/6 in the new key. What key might you get?
B minor.
Yeah. B is in boy, B minor. Because if a C sharp diminished chord is 7 in D, but it's a 2 in the new key, well, C sharp diminished is 2 in a B, in the key of B. B minor. Number 3. Ooh, this has an ultra smooth pivot chord. I like these, the 6 and the 2. A 6 chord in F has a root of D. So the chord with a root of D becomes a 2 chord. What key have we gone to? C. That's right. Major or minor?
Major.
Major. That's right. You gotta be observant there. Number 4. You guys think about this one. Take a few moments to think about it on your own. Does anyone have an idea what the new key would be? D as in dog, yeah, D minor. Because we're dealing with a G minor chord as the pivot. In what key would a G minor triad be a 4? And the answer is D minor. All right. I don't know that we need to spend all this time doing all of these. One thing you can definitely do, though, is you can cross out number 7. Number 7 is just, it's vile. Number 1, the composer uses a dominant or a 5 chord in the pivot, which is not very good in the first place. You never should choose that. And number 2, it's supposedly going to a minor key, but yet look at what kind of 4/6 it is under the bottom of the pivot chord. That's baloney. I don't know what the author was smoking when she wrote that. So this number 7 I would never ask you to do. Okay. Last but not least today, what I want to do is I want to go through a few, there's some short progressions that modulate, and I just want to find the signal chord and the pivot chord for these. Okay, just to give you extra practice. So take one of these, and we'll probably spend the next 10 minutes or so going through just some of these, not all of them. This comes from another theory book, so I just made copies of it for you.
I could do it if I was coming up the hill. I'm like, I'm gonna die. Who is it? Yeah, that's like the car.
Okay, some of these short progressions modulate through a method that we have not learned yet, but we will learn that method probably the next unit. So we can't do all of them, but let's see. I want you to focus on, let's skip to number 3 right away. Number 3 is just a short 2-measure example. And I guess I got to play it for you. I don't know who turned the piano around,
Oh, we did that conducting yesterday.
but. Oh.
So then Shelley could see the people conducting in the middle.
Oh. Well, I got to walk to the next zip code, but that's all right.
I'll tell her about it.
What is the, before I start playing it, let me ask you this, be observant. What is the opening key or the starting key of number 3?
E flat major.
Which one?
E flat major.
E flat major, yeah. E is an elephant, you bet. Now, can you look at the last 2 chords, especially the last chord? Can you tell me what the new key would be based on that cadence? A flat major, that's right, 2 closely related keys. Let me go ahead and play it. So we have. Poof, just like that, between keys. Now, how did we do that? Think about these 2 keys. They're both major keys. There's only one signal pitch to be thinking about. That is the difference between the 2 keys, key signature. D flat, right? Do you see a D flat showing up in one of those chords? Okay. Then I call that chord the signal chord because it contains the signal pitch. That is the first chord I want you to analyze in the new key. So analyze that chord quickly in the key of A flat. Now, I know because I've said this 100 times now. Where is the smoothing out pivot chord going to be found? 1 chord before. So go back to the prior measure and analyze that chord both in the old key of E flat and in the new key of A flat. It should fit in both keys very nicely. Okay, now, for your signal chord, did you get a 2-6 in A flat major? Good, that's what I got. And for your pivot chord, did you get a 4-6 in the old key and a 1-6 in the new key? And did you write your pivot chord symbol correctly? So that they're vertically aligned, one above the other. Good. Incidentally, I know we don't think about this all that much, and sometimes we analyze too quickly or too hastily. But sometimes, someone will get the first chord, it's a 4-6, and then in the new key they'll analyze it just as a 1, but not a 1-6. Do you see how why that's got to be impossible? Because there's really only 1 chord in the music, right? And if it's in first inversion in the old key, it's going to be in first inversion in the new key as well. So just be careful not to rush your analysis. If any of the chords in a pivot chord, if any of the Roman numerals are inverted, they have to be both have to be inverted, and they have to be inverted the same inversion, the same way. So you could never have a 4-6 becoming a 1 in root position. You have to have 4-6 becoming 1-6. And I just know that from teaching years of students, years of experience. Sometimes they forget that little detail. All right, can we go? Does anyone have any questions about this one? Let's go to. Can we go to? How about number 5? Skip down to number 5. Who can tell me what the opening key is of this short little passage? A major, right? I would agree. Now look at the last chord, the cadence. What is the new key by the time we finish?
F minor.
F what?
F sharp minor.
Yes, F sharp minor, that's right. Are those 2 keys closely related?
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, they're so closely related that they're relative. They share the same key signature, So, is this step gonna help us out to find a signal? No, because they share the same key signature. Is the first key a minor key? No, so we can't do anything with that. Is the second key or the new key a minor key?
Yeah.
Yep, so all you have to do is think of the leading tone of the new key and you found your one signal. See how simple that is?
Easy.
Easy breezy. Lemon squeezy. All right, let's listen to how this one goes. I'm going to bring the bass up an octave in the first measure so I can reach it. Oh, this is a good one. See that? Just slipped right into minor. If you weren't paying attention, you blink and you miss it. Okay, these are really excellent examples because they're so clear, I think, and straightforward. Where is the signal?
The second beat is on the last one.
Second to last measure, right? Because it's got the E sharp in it. So that's the signal chord. Where's the pivot chord? Yep, the chord right before. Can you analyze the chord right before in both A major and F sharp minor? And then also analyze the signal chord, the one with the E sharp, analyze that in the new key. Analyze that in the new key. I don't need you to analyze the whole example, but I just want to make sure. Are you getting the pivot chord? You see how it's a 2-6 in A, but it's a 4-6 in F sharp. Also, because the chord in the old key is a minor chord, you notice my 4 has to be minor also. It wouldn't make sense to do lowercase 2-6 in one key, but a major 4-6 in the. Got to be careful about that too. It's the same quality, it's the same chord and inversion, it's just a different Roman number, that's all. And then did you get 5-7 for the signal chord? Going after it? Yeah. Did you show the new key at the point of the pivot? Did you show F sharp minor somewhere there? Because I look for that too. If you don't show the new key at the pivot chord area, then I take off the point. Okay, let's do, we got one more to do. Can we go back to number 4? Number 4 is the last one on here that we can actually do at this point. What is the first key? E minor. That's right, E minor. What is the new key at the end? Any ideas based on the last chord? No, not B minor. Yeah, D major, right? D major. You see how the last two chords are A and then D? That's like a 5-to-1 in D. Okay, are E minor and D major closely related? Yes. Let me think about how many signal pitches are going to get here. Oh, I can think of 2. Go through the process mentally. What's one signal pitch you could be on? Keep an eye out for.
C sharp.
Good, C sharp. The other possible one would be D natural. That's right. Those are the only 2. So just scan from left to right. Where's the first place you either see a C sharp or a D natural? The second to last chord. Oh, could this be any simpler? Okay, let me play it quick while you do a little analysis of the signal chord and the pivot chord. We start in E minor. Then we get this nice chord. Strong. So the chord with the C sharp is called the signal chord. I want you to analyze that only in the new key of D, because it doesn't make sense in the old key. Then we know, I've said this 100 times, the pivot chord is the chord right before it. You have to analyze that chord two ways. It's got to fit nicely in the old key, and then it's also got to work in the new key. And you have to show the new key at the pivot chord. Now, here we go. So, did you get your pivot as minor 1 over minor 2? And did you show the new key of D major somewhere there? And then the signal chord, analyzed completely in the new key, it's analyzed perfectly as a 5, just to try. And, you know, really, if you follow these principles, even if, like, there's an example on a future quiz or test where it's not just, you know, so homophonic and chordal, but then you got more piano notes and all this other stuff, just still go back to the basics. Know what you're looking for the signal. Find the signal chord, go back one chord to find the pivot, and you'll be able to analyze the modulation. You really will. All right, so as we get ready to go here, as I said, we have a test on Wednesday, so we have review on Monday, which means I need to give you your test review. So, again, I don't normally collect these, you know, and grade these, but it is in your best interest to do as much of this as you can. So you can brush up and know what's going to be on the test. Oh, you got an handful, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Clean up the small test review about
Say again, this
small
one.
test review.
Okay, well, hey, that's all right. Now, it's not a long review, but you know, it could take some time. Especially if you work out the part rating at the end and all that stuff. All right, so that's all we have for today, guys. Thanks, have a good weekend, and we'll review this on Monday. Oh, yeah, thank you. Go ahead. I have to run through the camera off. Start recording.